Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I'm Olivia, a bilingual speech language pathologist and also a mommy to a 20-month-old little girl. Today I wanted to talk to you about some helpful tips that you can use at home if you're encouraging a second language or even a third language with your little one. So without any further ado, let's get started. So my number one tip is to start early. If you're in a household where you or your partner are speaking more than one language, I highly encourage you to go ahead and start speaking to your child in those two languages as soon as you can. Research shows that the first year of a baby's life is the most important, and it makes it a lot easier for the baby to learn a second language. They pick up on those sounds, they're like little sponges, so that language will be easier for them to absorb than if you wait until they're older. Up until 4 years old, that's another crucial point. So if you're going to be introducing another language, I would say as soon as possible within the first year. The next phase would be up until they're about 4 years old. That's another crucial point where they're able to learn that language and absorb those sounds that are from a different language much easier. And the research shows that after about 6 years of age, it becomes harder for us, for our brain, to have access to that new language. And so definitely before they're 6 years old, I would really highly recommend you encouraging your child to have that second language. Again, if that's something that you're interested in, there is research that suggests that your child, when they have access to a second language, that encourages their brain to work a little bit harder because they need to understand what is being said to them, and that keeps their brain a little bit more alert, a little bit more active. And think of it like going to the gym, right? Like when you're working out at the gym, you know that it's better for you to have that repetition, to have that stimulus. And so the same thing goes for our brain. So keep that in mind when you are thinking about introducing another language for your baby. A little disclaimer, I have parents often mention to me that if they feel that there's a little bit of a delay with their child, they want to use one language as opposed to two, not to confuse the baby. In some cases that can be helpful, and again, it's really important to speak to your doctor if you are sensing that there is a delay with your child, or if you think there might be something else going on there. But there are studies that have been done that involve children with special needs and using two languages, and the research was finding that it did not have a negative effect on the child. But for the purpose of this video, I'm going to be focusing on typically developing children who are in a bilingual household or in a family where the parents want them to have that second language or third language. I'm going to use bilingual for anything more than one. Monolingual is one language in the house. Bilingual has been a term that's been used for two or more languages. So that is the acceptable term. So that's what we're going to be using. Going back to our tips, my second suggestion is to use old material to teach new skills. So going back to, if you're usually speaking in English in your house and you're trying to expose your child to another language, it's helpful to use, for example, the books that they already have, or maybe they have a little kitchen in their house. You want them to use something that they're already familiar with, so that they're not working extra hard to learn whatever this new toy is or whatever this new book is, and now on top of that they're also learning another language. So keep that in mind, teaching new skills with old materials. We're doing that a lot with our daughter. We've been introducing the second language pretty much since she was born, and very often we will read the same books in both languages, translating and talking about the pictures, so the baby has that exposure to the concepts in both languages and she's familiar with the material. My next tip is, this is one of the more popular ways to introduce bilingualism is to have one parent speak in one language and the second parent speak in a different language. So that way they're having that exposure throughout the day. There are other ways to do this. For example, having the child speak one language at home and another language in school, and so they're getting that exposure from different environments. This takes me into my next tip, which is consistency. It's really, really important to be consistent. If you are speaking to your baby 6 days out of the week in one language, you're really not giving that baby an opportunity to be exposed fully and immersed in that language. So even if it's a half an hour every day, but obviously as much as you can, it's really important to make that commitment that you will give that exposure to the baby, consistent exposure. And along with that, you also want to make sure that you're providing different scenarios, different content, different toys, books, for that baby. For example, if you're only speaking to the baby in your second language during mealtime, the baby might get familiar with some of those tools or materials that you're using for mealtime. But then once the baby is somewhere else, outside or at the zoo, she might not have that content. So it's important to speak to your baby in that language across different environments, in different settings, so that they have that exposure to the language. And finally, my last tip would be to include other people in this process. It's really important to not do this alone. This is not easy because we ourselves tend to have a certain dominant language that we prefer to use, whether it's with our partners or with our family members. So this is a conscious effort that you will have to commit to. And it's really helpful to have the support of others around you, whether it's including your family members, for example, grandparents. Make it a point to say, can you please come over once a week and make sure you interact with the baby in the second language. If the baby is going to a daycare, maybe that's a conversation you can have with a teacher, if that's something that's important to you, and inform the teacher that, my baby is bilingual, that's important to me. Is there a class that we can make sure the baby is in, or maybe there is a second language available? And also it's just important to let the teachers know that your baby has that second language that they're learning, because sometimes if the baby is quiet, or maybe that the dominant language isn't the one that's in the school, it's great for the teacher to be aware of that and to make sure that they're equipped for that. To give your child that maybe extra wait time, or making sure that they are around other children that maybe are speaking that language that the baby speaks at home. And so again, it takes a village. Include other people to support you. Make sure that the people around you are aware that this is important to you, because it'll take some time, but there are some great benefits to that process. It really is a gift to have a child know a second language. There are lots of benefits to it. I'm doing it with my daughter. It's not easy, but it's something that will be worth it in the end. Like I said, if you have any specific questions, feel free to reach out to me at olivialiberatory.com, or follow me on Instagram. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.